I actually thought so. I think between Lafort and Wayne Arons, for the experience that they bring, that they carry, for the amount of Champions League experience that they have been accumulating over the years, for me, which is what I think Peter Mosimane did for the most part, he would use a player that has been absent from the starting lineup in a long while, and he'll drop him into the starting lineup just because it's Champions League, because of the experience that they were bringing. I mean, last season already in their campaign in the Champions League, I remember Umanyisa had not played for Mamelodi Sundowns, had not been in that starting lineup, but because of his experience that he brings from Orlando Pirates in the Champions League, he was dropped in. Sumohoro is another who had not seen game time at all, and yet when it came to Champions League, he was able to drop him in. But you know what? If you're a team that has this type of ambition, and you've signed about 8-10 players already, new players, I'm talking, it's a star-studded Mamelodi Sundowns, and I guess at some stage you got to let go of some of the players that were there. But the difference is that whoever has been signed doesn't have the same experience as Olafur and Wayne Arons. But the system is choking as it is with so many players. And I guess maybe giving the chance to be able to go elsewhere, maybe try their luck elsewhere, and was the reason. But for me, I would have thought differently. Maybe because, like I said, maybe because Pizzo is not there anymore, the new coach or the new coaches thought differently. That is another story for another day. The one that I'm really excited about is because I was worried myself for the style that Mamelodi Sundowns do play. I felt like maybe Shalulile will be found wanting because he's a bit more direct than the way Sundowns play. He always is the runner, basically. And Sundowns, they're slow in their build-up. They build through the middle gradually. And for somebody like Shalulile, who's always on the run, I thought he might struggle. But he's fitted in so well, whereby he's giving them actually another way to be able to play. When they can't play through the middle, they find them with the long pass. Remember, Uchali is still a part of that middle field. Kutsia is still a part of that midfield. These two players, okay, Kikane now and then maybe doesn't get to play. I'm talking about the players that has the ability to find a player on the run. About players that has the ability to put a diagonal ball from one channel to the other. Like in an instant, you can get a goal from the sprinting Shalile. So he's, for me, been very impressive. Obviously, Kemit Erasmus is another who I knew would fit in very well. His explosive nature fitted quite nicely into a Sundowns team that, you know, should you lock them down, should you put in a wall, a block in front of them, you need players with that ability to sneak in very tight spots. Because of his excellent center of gravity, I'm talking Kemit Erasmus now, he's able to sneak in between there and release the ball. Already he's found the net on a few occasions for Mamelodi Sundowns. So that for me is top quality. When you talk George Malulega, who obviously there was so much noise about his move. And if you think at the start of this new season, he's only been brought in patches. I'm not sure what will have been the reason. But again, take it into account. This is a very tough Sundown side that has signed that well. I mean, think about Kekane sitting on the bench, and who starts ahead of him is Kutsia and Andile Jali. So you got to understand that it's not going to be easy to create that middle. And I'm sure he's another player that is going to build his way into the team with a little bit of time, George Malulega. But there's also Domingo, who comes from Bidvest. He's another that maybe for what he was able to achieve at Bidvest, you'd expect him to walk into the Sundown teams and hit the ground running. But that hasn't been the case. But just show how competitive the Sundowns team is. Aubry is another. The thing is, you got to first identify yourself. Are you a winger? Are you an attacking midfielder? Are they going to play him as a wide left because he's left-footed, or are they going to play him as an inverted winger? But Aubry Motiba, for me, for what I know him, you know, he can play in that left fullback position, just like Lakay, who also came in as an attacking midfielder. Also, a Langerman. He arrived as an attacking left midfielder, but eventually got dropped into a fullback. So Modiba is that type. He's a utility player. He's versatile. He can play in different number of positions, but you got to be able to master one position to be in a position to command a starting lineup just about every weekend. So he's one of those that I'm sure with time will work their way in. Don't underestimate his quality. He's top quality, but he's got to find his space into that star-studded Sundowns team as well. I spoke about Domingo. Certainly Kapinga is another that is also going to be fighting for that number 10 position. And, there was quite a bit of noise made about him when he didn't start the season with Mamelodi Sundowns, having made a lot of waves about his move from Black Leopards. But now, the last game that they played, I can't quite remember who it was up against. I think Stellenbosch. He made a cameo appearance. And for me, he was incredible. He walked into that park and he owned the position. He was just gliding through past defenders like he's been there for the longest. I'm sure the Sundowns supporters are beside themselves with excitement of what they saw. And once again, he's another that comes into a very tough situation. But I think he'll make the waves. He'll create the waves. He has what it takes. He doesn't for Kapinga. It doesn't matter how many players or defenders he's got in front of him. He can clear his way. So I can't wait before he starts gelling with the rest of the team. That's another very, very tough department, the goalkeeping side of Mamelodi Sundowns. I mean, Dennis Onyango has made that position his own, and Mwini, who is a CAF Nations Cup winner, to think that he's struggled to keep up with Dennis Onyango. And then we got these youngsters coming into that department as well. Ricardo Goss, who was commanding that number 1 spot at Bidvest, and now he's fallen so low in the pecking order that he doesn't even travel with the team. And there is Jody February, by the way, as well. He's another quality young goalkeeper that is a part of this. There's Peterson, who's also a part of that. I mean, I'm just trying to think, is Dennis Onyango going to let off anytime soon? Except for in the case of injuries. That maybe is the only time that they might get a chance to show even the squad list. But for now, Dennis Onyango has made that position his own. So I think that will continue for the next 2 seasons or so, if he doesn't get injuries. It's very, very tough. But you know what? For Sundowns, who likes to compete in every competition, it's good for them, because you don't want to be left wanting should your main goalkeeper gets injured and then you found that you don't have a goalkeeper for the CAF, you don't have a goalkeeper for this and that and that. So they're an ambitious side. For the team as a whole, it's perfect, but for the individuals, maybe not. But it's a risk that they had to take. Who am I to even start to complain? The team is unbeaten in 5 games, in 5 league games. Yes, they lost in that MTN Cup. But for where they are right now, 13 points in 5 games, very, very impressive. That means basically they've only lost 2 points, and that is from 2 draws. The only maybe pain or concern they might have, or regret, is that there were 3 points available when they played Chakuma, and they weren't able to take advantage. So that could be the only challenge. But you know what? For me, I'm the last one to complain. As long as the team that they're fielding is getting the result, you can't fault the coach. The other challenge that we thought they might have is how are they going to deal with the different egos from the 3 coaches that have been appointed as head coaches. But it looks like for now it's working so well. So long may it continue is all we can say. Another club, obviously, that I think has done well in the market, and as far as players that they signed for this season, is Orlando Pirates. If there's one problem that they had for the longest time, it is one team that was always doing ever so well going forward. They used to score goals, sometimes 4 in one game, sometimes 3. in games like one after the other. But you find that in those games, they will not win them. They will either draw or even lose for that matter, which basically tells you that there were problems defensively. And I think that is where that maybe they'll make the season count, because I think they signed that well. First, the goalkeeper of Orion. Not that Sunderland was doing bad, but I feel like maybe there was a lack of cover in front of him. But with the arrival of Tyson, and I feel like certainly that is the captain of Bafana Bafana, and was also the captain of Bidvest. And if you look at the type of experience that he accumulated playing for Bidvest, playing in cup finals, in the CAF Champions League, and everywhere else, certainly I think that was an excellent signing. But then having Ofori behind him also just has strengthened that defensive line to levels whereby I feel like there will be a difficult nut to crack. But going forward, do not underestimate, before I even go forward, there's Hill Yoste, who plays as the right back, and for me is a surprise signing, because we've always known him for his pace going forward. But every now and then at Highlands Park, he was used as a right full back. But because of his speed, he covers that distance so well. So perfect for him, for a coach that wants to play attacking football. You need the full backs to come in very handy in situations like that. But it's been an incredible team, and you have to go for it. Tsukamanja is one other striker that has been exceptional. There's Dion Horto, obviously also coming from Bidvest. So that for me is another element that I think will work well for Orlando Pirates, because this players comes from one team, and it means there's already an understanding in the way that they play. So naturally there's going to be a flow in as far as their game is concerned. So those are the areas that I feel like they've been exceptional. They're in the finals. When last were they in the finals? If you talk about Orlando Pirates start of the season, I mean, the impact has been immediate. And but of course it depends. They're still going to play the finals against Bloemfontein Celtic, and depending on how they organize themselves. But you can see that at least they might not be scoring a lot of goals, but they're defending well. So that was a slight distraction from up the sky. So these are the areas that you look at. Has their defense stayed in place? Yes, it has improved. And it means if you bring in the likes of Mohango, who has been injured, who has been carrying a long-term injury, but is just back now, it means the attacking lines are going to improve. There's also Lodge, who has been now and then in and out because of injury. Imagine if he recovers fully, and there's going to be added value into the attack. So Orlando Pirates is going to be a very strong team defensively in the middle and in the attack. So for me, where they are, and as far as the league, their position in log, having not lost a game since beginning of the season in the final, speaks a lot about where the team is. I guess when you look at the log table, it tells you the story. Very disappointing. Only one win in 5 games. That basically tells you the story that Kaizer Chiefs is a struggling team. They lost the MTN8. Obviously, over the weekend they were out there in Cameroon playing CAF Champions League, and what a relief for Gavin Hahn to just maybe distract himself slightly from the domestic challenges to focus into something else. Because right now, Kaizer Chiefs is a team that needed a win, any sort of win, even if it was a friendly, just to boost the confidence. But they got one away from home, and it's CAF Champions League. That speaks a lot for what has been created in as far as the confidence of the players. And it's a big challenge. Gavin, what he's done basically very well, people might not agree with me here, is what he's been trying to do to mix up the youngsters and the more experienced players. Because for the style that he likes to play, he likes high intensive football, high tempo football, and the players that are there right now might not be able to keep up with that type of football throughout the season. That's why he has to blend it with the young ones. All that he needs right now is give them the right experience, give them game time, give him 2 months. This Kaizer Chiefs team is going to be flying, because these youngsters will have at least picked up what Gavin wants of them. They will at least now understand his philosophy better. So I expect an improvement going forward very soon, for that matter, because he's suffering now. He sacrificed result for experience. He's using these games, beginning of the season, just to give these youngsters experience. You saw around the second half, he drops them all, like in numbers, just to give them those moments to say, okay, right now it's your time, gain experience. And that should be able to come through for him. Kaizer Chiefs has a lot of experienced players. Some have been there the longest. I mean, Parker, for one, has the longest. And the challenge for Parker is that we don't know just how much of the 90 minutes can he play. So, alongside the style that Gavin Hans wants them to play. So, I think that's one for him. That's why sometimes it brings him a little bit late to just help lift the game. Katsande, for one, the captain in that center of the middle. He's got the experience. I think he should actually step up and really lead. Manyama is another. Kune, he might not get regular game time because of Akpe, but he's another experienced player. You don't necessarily have to step up your influence in the game itself, even in the dressing room, even during the week in training. These are the type of players that you want to see a lot more. Cardoso in defense should lead the lines. I mean, he's been there the longest also. So this is just a few that I've just made now. I mean, Billiard up front, and I don't think he's delivered in as far as what they basically thought they were signing for him to give Kaizer Chiefs. That hasn't quite happened. He's another that I feel like in the minds of the Kaizer Chiefs management, they're thinking that he still has to come in and deliver. Castro, just as well that he's staying. He's another very experienced player. I mean, this structure, if you look at the central axis of the team, for me, they've got the players that can actually rise to the occasion, but they just need to learn to blend quickly with the young stars to produce the necessary result. This is a very tough question. Maritzburg management made the decision to get rid of Tinkler. But if me and you were to turn the page, a few pages, let's go 3-4 seasons back and see how Maritzburg started the season, you'll be able to pick up that this is a team that has struggled with beginning of their season. Fadu Davids, twice when he was at the helm, 2 seasons in succession, he was struggling. And there was a time, I think they went about 9 games without a win. And yet they didn't pull the trigger. And it happened with Eric Tinkler as well last season. I mean, but he was able to turn the clock around so quickly that he was able to play in the Telkom Cup final against Mamelodi Sundowns. And for me, I'm not sure what has changed so dramatically that they were basically influenced to make the decision. And it is how Maritzburg United starts. But whatever that they can't get right in the beginning of the season, I'm not too sure. I cannot put a finger to it. But obviously, Middendorp, he's an old horse in this business. He's very experienced. He's an old fox, and I'm sure he'll be able to tweak it around. He doesn't have too much time either, and they need that first win as soon as possible. So for what he was able to do at Kaizer Chiefs, remember, this is a Kaizer Chiefs team that never even made it into the top 8 when he took over. And he was able to turn them around last season to compete for the league honors. So he's a man that knows how to turn teams around with very, very little resources. So I think he's got it within himself to do that. So it's a matter of time. It's a wait-and-see game. Unbelievable what Swallows FC has been able to achieve. With very little. If you look at the players that they've gone with players that basically have been let go from other teams, even the players that helped them qualify back into the PSL. These are players that were basically rejected by other teams, and they've been able to regenerate them and to perform in this fashion. And Kamaldin, of course, is another that was recalled, having done well for Steenberg last season in the first division, and was robbed at Chippa United. And when he left Steenberg, he was actually the top goal scorer. And when he arrived at Chippa United, maybe he didn't hit the ground running, but still he contributed quite a bit. And he'll be key. He's got the experience. And if you look at the defense as well, Letlabika, coming from Bloemfontein Celtic, is another that for me will add so much value. He's got experience about him. Yes, they've been able to retain quite a bit in as far as the players that helped them qualify. But they've mixed it nicely, and with their philosophy and the coach who obviously worked with these players in the first division. That for me, it's a remarkable story of Morocco Swallows. We are very excited because this is a team that has such a great history, and we can't wait for the fans to return back to the stadium once the stands are opened. Hey, do I need to tell you? Honestly, I mean, Baroka have been unbelievable. This is after letting go of their head coach in Dylan Kerr, and how Toki, who has been there for the longest underneath. He's worked under different coaches. He's worked under Tobejane. He's worked under Nyirenda. He's worked under numerous other coaches as well. And he's always been there. So I think it's only fair that he gets given the chance as well to test his experience, to test his ability as head coach. And be reminded as well that whenever there was a coach gap, a vacuum at Baroka, he was the one that would normally rise to the occasion. And I remember there was a time when Nyirenda had to go home, I think twice, and he had to take the team in a cup game. He was able to beat Sumisman. That says a lot about a coach. And not only that, there was other occasions whereby he was left to lead. So that for me has really been the highlight of the season for those Limpopo teams in the way. And they could be actually higher than that. Remember, they considered against Golden Arrows in the last minute. That game they should have won. They ended up throwing it. And in their last game against Pirates as well, they considered right at the dead. That's another 3 points. So from where they are right now, they could be actually at the top of the log. Because if you add the 6 points with what they're holding raw, it puts them above Mamelodi Sundowns. So it's fantastic what Baroka has been done. I'm actually very happy that the requirements of a coach that will sit on the bench has been upped, whereby you have to have the right credentials. We've had situations of coaches coming from anywhere else, sometimes even in Europe. Just because they come from Europe, it kind of qualified them that they must sit on that bench. But right now, that the platform changes completely. So you need to have the credentials. And when you look at Tokyo, of course, yes, he doesn't have the qualifications, but his performance, like I mentioned him, he's worked under so many coaches. So he's been learning. Right now, he's got to go for a course. And his application in the field of play, for me, is not a problem. But you still need him to have the paperwork. And we need coaches to have the paperwork. This is a job. You have to qualify for it. You have to have the right paperwork for it. And it's professional. It's a professional league, this. It's not a mediocre league that anybody can just jump in and do what they do. No. It must be deserving for anybody that claims to be one. So they get paid the big money, by the way. So they got to have the paperwork for it. So I'm happy with what is happening. It's very, very important. A coach. Remember, a coach is not just somebody that stands there. You got to be a psychologist. You got to deal with the minds of players. You got to understand how the body works. You got to understand how you need to regenerate the players. You need to be able to plan your season, not just for 12 months. You got to plan it in schedules of 3 to 4 weeks. You got to plan it from maybe a week as well. That not anybody can come into that space and make those decisions. Or else you can kill the players because of your lack of understanding. You can kill careers. But when you get the opportunity to go into class, this is where basically you get afforded the opportunity to understand exactly what is pre-season. What is this cycle? When you talk about the cycles that are spoken about, the Mayo cycle, the micro, and all these other cycles that are involved. So that is where you are able to plan. But if you've not been in class, you don't understand those. You can make mistakes. You can kill a career for that matter. So I think for me it is important. It's paramount. It's of paramount importance. My only problem with my former team, Supersport United, is like under Kaizer Chiefs. It's either they win or lose. There's nothing in between. Look at the games that they play. There's not been a draw. It's all win or lose. But if you win well, let me tell you, if you win 15 of the 30 games, you win the league. But I know obviously they're still going to lose some games in between. So that's the only challenge for me. It's like I don't think Supersport are signing that well at the moment. You look at the players that they have on the bench. They're young. They're just too young. And I'm not sure how much does it give Kaizer Chiefs as a coach to influence a game. You can have the starting lineup, but somewhere along the game, there are times where you need to bring in players that will take the game to the next level. You don't substitute for the sake of just changing the legs, of refreshing the legs. You change because you want somebody that will impact the game, not only with fresh legs, but also tactically, with experience. Unfortunately, what is happening on the bench doesn't. That's why, for me, when he loses a game, he loses it. Because when those youngsters, once they start trailing, he's not able to come back because he doesn't have the experience from the bench. But you know what? Top 4. I still see them making the top 4 again. VAR has its own problem. But the officiating is at the moment maybe at its worst in the PSL. And I think I need to maybe explain the reason to that as well. There's a lot of officials that have been let go. Some have retired, but some didn't qualify because they didn't pass the fitness test. So they've been basically downgraded. And these youngsters, they're fit, they've got the energy, but they don't have the experience. They can arrive into a situation only to make a wrong decision. So that is the problem. If we're to look at the numbers actually that have been promoted to do work in the PSL, even up to 20 years young, it's the first of its kind that we see officials of such an age. I'm just trying to think, where has he been learning the trade? How much time has he had basically building up his career to where now he can run a PSL game? So these are some of the problems that the league has had to deal with here because of the older referees. The more experienced one didn't make the test. So it's a problem to an extent that team managers and bosses alike, they're thinking, no, this one has it in for me. Maybe these referees have been bought. I don't think so. That's just because they just don't have the experience. How much time do they need to be able to come to par with the right standard? I'm not too sure. But clearly, there's a problem in as far as our officiating is concerned. And I just hope, for me, they'll quickly speed up their learning curve and really start to deliver very soon. Yes, VAR, I'm not too sure. Goal line technology, for me, I say yes. But VAR is having problems in Europe as we speak. So what difference is it going to make? And it will take Mr. Spot-on's job, who is one of our analysts when it comes to referees. Our shows are now dominated by referees' mistakes than tactical reasons. So that goes to show basically how alarming the problem is.